Okay, thanks. Thanks for having me here. It's good to be able to contribute to debates like this because we do a lot of our organising on the ground. It's good to actually come to a space like this where we can see that community organisers being talked about as something that can re-energise our movement. It's good to see that that's sort of on the agenda. And this sort of politics brought me into politics as a whole, actually. I didn't get into politics to talk about minutes or to debate Clause 4. I got into politics because I was annoyed that kids from council houses on my estate couldn't get on in life. I was annoyed because I was the only person I knew from my understanding was university. Basically, I wanted to change things. That's why I wanted to be in politics, and that was the attraction of community organising for me. Given that the organising that I do is outside of the union movement, but like you said, with unions as part of those campaigns, I thought I'd best contribute by giving a story of one of those campaigns and looking at how we worked with the unions in that context. And the campaign was one in Cardiff, where I started working. I'm from Cardiff, and I started working there with a few Labour Party members who wanted to run a campaign in one ward around voter registration, a ward where there was very low turnout, very low registration. So we went and we spoke to residents and we spoke to institution leaders, asking them about what they thought was the best way we could develop a voter registration campaign. But something that struck us was that everywhere we went, we spoke to people, but they seemed to ask us another question, which is, why don't you do something about landlords? This thing kept coming up about landlords, and we were trying to talk to them about voter registration, and they kept asking us to do something about landlords. So we did. We put away the voter registration forms, for now at least, and we've begun to figure out ways how we could build campaigns to try and sort out some of the problems that were around the stories we were hearing about the treatment of tenants. There was one story of a woman a new migrant here from Ethiopia. She was living in a house in Cardiff, private rented accommodation. The ceiling fell through and water kept coming through the ceiling. But when she communicated with the landlord, he didn't get back in touch for 3 weeks. So she was living in his house with her children, basically because the landlord didn't reply. Another story we heard about a young woman who had moved into a flat where the landlord hadn't even given her his contact information. And the house was crawling with rats and small snakes, and she couldn't even get in touch with them because there was no contact information. And another one where a landlord had asked a potential tenant to pay for a credit check. He failed the credit check, so didn't get given the accommodation, and then he still made him pay for the credit check in the first place. So we wanted to do something about this. But importantly, when we were hearing these stories and when we were asking people about their experiences, we asked them to work with us and to act with us. We didn't just build a campaign arbitrarily around this issue that we thought was important. We asked people to take part. And after a bit of organising and after a lot of one-to-one meetings across this ward, we brought 40 people together into a community centre in the middle of the ward and begun to plan with them. We asked them what they thought we could do, what they wanted to do, and they came up with a community charter, a 3-point charter that they wanted to get landlords and tenants to sign up to, and to get the council and student unions, things like that, to channel through their advice channels. The 3 points were pretty basic. It was to provide full contact details as a landlord, to respond to communication promptly in accordance with the severity of the case, and to provide local information packs that the council already made but didn't provide as standard. After that, they went around to local estate agents. The day before Valentine's Day, they made paper roses. They made their own Valentine's cards with their own kind of designs for a logo, took them to estate agents, and took photos of them taking a rose off of them and all this sort of stuff. But the card explained the campaign to them, and it asked them if they would meet with the campaigners to discuss what they could do. And on the whole, they were positive. We've met with about probably 10 to 12 so far, all of whom said they would agree to sign up to the charter. Mainly because at the same time, they knew we were in negotiations with the council and with the students' union, and they were going to tell basically any potential resident what landlords and what agents had signed up to these pledges. And that's where we are now. Basically, over the next couple of weeks, the activists have broken up into negotiating teams to hammer out the details with the council and the students' unions, and then there'll be a big public action in May for the landlords to sign publicly, for the council to declare what they're going to do, and for the students' unions to do so as well. Now, early in that campaign, we got in touch with local union branches. We done a sort of power analysis of that community. You look around who are the potential people that could work with us. And we got in touch with local union branches to help us out, and they did. They helped us. They sent members along, because obviously members lived in the ward, so they wanted to be a part of it, and they had experiences to share. They helped us communicate the campaign to people across the membership of South Wales, and they helped us in those sorts of ways. And that's how I sort of see, obviously this isn't community unionism, but community organising working with unions. That's the sort of model I see, that sort of partnership between the unions and the community that creates power for that community. And I guess the sort of size of the union participation can be as great or as small as you like, but as long as it's an equal partnership in that sort of in that relationship. And there's three things I wanted to sort of pick out that I think might be challenges, I guess, to unions. There were certainly challenges when we first started doing this through the Labour Party. And maybe they're the same thing. The first one, which Ian's actually mentioned, was about being partners but not leaders in this sort of campaigning. It can be difficult to give away control or give away kind of credit to other people and other organisations for this sort of thing. Again, we had that difficulty through the Labour Party, and I'm sure it can be a difficulty through the union movement too. But there needs to be a faith in that long-term vision of how community organising can help rebuild the power of unions and the power of our communities. So that's the first thing. The second thing is the development of leaders. In our work as organisers, we obsess about the development of people because they're the ones who are going to run campaigns and change things. And I know that in unions there's fantastic opportunities for training and education for members, but also looking outside that membership and having the kind of foresight to invest in the development of people who are outside of our institutions and our organisations. Again, another thing that provided a challenge to the Labour Party. And the third thing is just adapting to modern life. Communities have changed, and they're still changing now. And I question whether our movement as a whole has adapted to that. We need to look, community still exists, people still associate, but they just do it differently now. We've got to look to traditional things like faith institutions, parties, unions, but also, we've worked with book clubs and yoga clubs, local refugee groups, drama societies. All of these things where people gather can provide power for us as movements and as communities. But I question whether we've moved with that change.